Hello, dear viewers. Namaskar. Welcome to Moksha Media. You are with Moksha Hiremat. Most of us have, even today, not lost the opportunity of reading literary pieces. When we read a literary piece, it makes us pleasurable, it enhances our knowledge, it inspires our sensitivity and sensibility, it shows what is right and what is wrong. It makes us a true human being. When a literary piece enhances all these possibilities, then we say, of course, it is a good literary piece, it is a noble literary work, etc., etc. In every literary piece, we see, we feel the poetic justice. Whether it is old and new or modern or ultra modern, we feel that poetic justice. A literary piece will lose its value if it doesn't make us feel that poetic justice. So, poetic justice plays a prominent role in making a piece of writing a literary one. Then, what does poetic justice mean? In the olden days, or in olden literary critical works, we have not seen the praise poetic justice. The poetic justice has been used somewhere in the Renaissance period, I think. But that doesn't mean before that the poetic justice was not there. The poetic justice is there in all literary pieces, but that justice is not named as poetic justice. For the first time in the history of literature in general and English literature in particular, the phrase poetic justice is used. Thomas Rhymer was a literary critic. He used the phrase poetic justice in his tragedies of Lost Age Considered. He used it in this literary work, and it was published, I think, in 1678 of Common Era. Before that, the poetic justice was used. Whatever literary language or literary culture is, in those works we can see the poetic justice. Whether it is the works of Aristotle, Dante, Shakespeare, William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, P.B. Shelley, Lord Byron, T.S. Eliot, George Eliot, Edgar Allan Poe, Maxim Gorky, and etc. etc. We have seen this poetic justice. Kannada literary pieces are not an exception to this. There also we see the poetic justice. But in the 17th century, the literary critic Thomas Rhymer has coined the term, has coined the phrase, the poetic justice. From that time onwards, the phrase poetic justice is used to identify justice in the literary pieces. Then what does poetic justice mean? According to Thomas Rhymer, poetic justice means rewarding the virtuous one and punishing the vicious one. In a literary piece, a writer, a novelist, an essayist, or a dramatist, or a poet, whatever it may be, he or she must show that poetic justice in their works in one way or another way. Whether they are olden days classical literary pieces or modern days different literary pieces, we see this poetic justice. In the beginning, or in the middle, or in the end, as the case may be, the poetic justice is shown in the literary piece. There we feel the virtuous is rewarded and the viciousness of a man is punished. If we don't show this positive element in a literary piece, to that extent, that literary piece will be lost its importance, it will be lost its nobility. Sometimes a writer can say so many things, but if he does not favor the poetic justice, to that extent that literary work will lose its influence on the readers and on the society. So whether virtuous leads the life of happiness or not, that is different, that is immaterial. But virtuous one should have the poetic justice in one way or another way. We see this in so many works of Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, in the works of John Dryden, even in the works of Francis Bacon and others in the history of English literature. Of course, American English literature is not an exception to this. Kannada literary literature is not an exception to this. We see this poetic justice even in Pampa's works, in Sharana's Vachanas, in Harihara's Ragale, of course, Purandara Dasara Kirtanegalu, that is the Purandara Dasas and Kanakadasa's compositions, and etc. etc. Even in modern days also we can see in toto that Kannada literature is not an exception to this poetic justice. We see this in the works of Kuvempu, Dara Bendre, Shivram Karanth, Vikru Gokak, Girish Karnad, Chandrasekhar Kambar, Masti Venkatesh Iyengar. Of course, and other so many poets and novelists and etc. These are simply examples in order to say that poetic justice is there in olden days also, but it is not named as poetic justice. But in the 17th century, that Thomas Rhymer praised poetic justice, he coined the phrase poetic justice, and then onwards we go on and on using the phrase poetic justice. In olden days, the literary piece uses the word morality, but there the religion was predominant. It was everything. It showed the difference between good and bad. It stands for goodness. It favors virtuousness. So that morality played the dominant role in olden days. In those days, it was considered as a moral one, and that morality enhanced the lives of the people in those days. But when people lost faith in religion, automatically this poetic justice has taken the place of that morality in literary works. It is common. Somewhere at some time, something will lose its importance. When it loses its importance, at that time, the another word or another phrase or another system will take the place of that one in the interest of humanity, in favor of human beings. Because the continuation of human beings, the continuation of humanity is very important. Without humanity, a literary piece cannot become a literature in the real sense, even though it has used so many good words and phrases and idioms, etc., etc. Whether the writer is an optimist or a pessimist, in one way or another way, he shows the poetic justice in his works. Even we can see it in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Of course, Bhagavad Gita is the part of Mahabharata. And in those pieces, we can see the poetic justice in the name of religious morality. But as the time goes on and on, different words are coined in order to show the different developments, the different periods in the literary history. In digital age, we also see so many changes, so many words, but the phrase poetic justice has been continued to show the punishment of viciousness and reward of the virtuousness. So in India, the poetic justice has taken another stage. It has gone to another stage. It can be seen in olden days also that the theory of karma has been shown a kind of poetic justice, but actually the theory of karma is more than poetic justice. In karma, virtuous is rewarded and viciousness is punished. If something happened, we say it is our karma, because if we do good things, we get the good rewards. if you do bad things, you will get the bad, you will get the evil, you will face the evil in the present or future. In one day or other way, you will get the punishment in one form or another form. It may be the continuity of that particular family, or it may be the continuity of particular virtuousness, or it may be other things, but that poetic justice can be seen in this karma theory. It is, karma is more than poetic justice. Poetic justice can be felt, can be seen in literary pieces, but karma is not only seen in literary pieces, it is seen in the actual life. It is seen in the past, present, and future. That is the understanding of Indians. So, that karma is more than a poetic justice. Of course, poetic justice is the primary level, but karma is vast. But in karma, we can see the poetic justice. Poetic justice is confined to literary pieces, whereas karma not only confined to literary pieces, it goes beyond those literary pieces. When we are in power, when we are dominant, when we are despotic, when we are absolute, when we are all in all, we feel that what we do will be everything. It will not be punished like that. No. If you do good, you will get the rewards. If you do bad or evil things, you will get the punishment in one way or another way. In the present, or immediate present, or in the future. There are so many conceptions regarding this. Of course, it is not a platform to debate all those things, but my point is, karma has the poetic justice. It makes one feel that poetic justice, and after certain stage, that karma goes beyond that poetic justice. So we can see this poetic justice in the works of Shakespeare, whether it is King Lear, Macbeth, Hamlet, Love's Last Labor, I think, and Merchant of Venice, etc. Almost all 44 dramas of Shakespeare. And we can see in Wordsworth also, in the form of a nature. He says nature is a friend, philosopher, and guide. And if we do not harm the nature, of course, if we part and parcel of the nature, nature helps us, nature favors us, etc., etc. So, some exceptions may be there. For example, if you take the examples of Thomas Hardy's works, there we can feel the pessimism. But pessimism is different. The pessimistic idea, in one way or another way, leads to optimistic ideas. So, that Hardy's thoughts begins his work with optimism and ends in pessimism. And again, after pessimism, we come to that optimism. So even the people, even the literary literature is pessimist or optimist, in one way or another way, it stands for poetic justice. We can see it very clearly in the Vachanas of Sarvagna. We can see it in the Tripadis of Sarvagna in Kannada literature. Very wonderful Tripadis. It may be Chamarasa's Prabhulinga Leela. Whatever work it is, we can see it. Even today, we can see that poetic justice in one way or another way. That is why poetic justice should not be neglected in a literary piece. If a literary piece doesn't show that poetic justice, to that extent, that literary piece will be failed. its success will be limited. To go beyond limitlessness, we should show that poetic justice. That is why poetic justice is part and parcel of a literature. It is in the form of morality, it is in the form of continuity of human beings, it is in the form of continuity of generation in one way or another way. So, the literature should favor that poetic justice in his works. And we should not neglect that poetic justice. So then only that literary piece which stands for poetic justice will get the success, will enhance the generation to be human beings. It uplifts man from animality. It makes a man a real human being. That is what we have to take into account while writing a literary piece. Whether it is old or modern, that is immaterial. So the poetic justice is there for all the time. It was there, it is there, it is going to be there, no doubt about it. That is why the proper place should be given to poetic justice in a literary piece. So, dear viewers, share and subscribe. See you in the next episode. Namaskar.